Welcome to today's Explainer. We are diving straight into a seriously fascinating textual study of the biblical book of Ruth, specifically chapter 2, verses 14 through 18. What this ancient text does so beautifully is help us wrap our heads around the true three-dimensional nature of grace. We hear that word thrown around a lot, but what does it actually look like in the real world? Well, let's find out.
To get to the bottom of this, we're going to look at three main ideas: grace upon grace, effort in grace, and faithfulness in grace.
All right, starting us off with section 1, grace upon grace.
So picture this. You have Ruth. She's an impoverished foreign widow, a total outsider in Bethlehem, and her only goal for the day is to literally just survive by picking up leftover scraps of grain in a dirt field. But suddenly, out of nowhere, she's noticed by the wealthy landowner Boaz, and he invites her to sit at his table for a meal. The text specifically notes she ate all she wanted and even had food left over. She goes from the absolute brink of starvation to complete, overflowing satisfaction.
And Boaz doesn't just give her a little bit of help, he stacks escalating layers of grace on top of each other. First, he tells her to stay safely in his field. Then, he offers her water drawn by his own workers, which was a huge luxury for a foreigner. Next, he invites her to actually sit and eat roasted grain with them, but it culminates in this totally shocking instruction. He tells his workers to let her glean right among the sheaves and to intentionally drop handfuls of grain on the ground just for her to find. He literally rigged the field in her favor.
Now, there's a really cool, overarching theological connection happening here. Think about how the crippled Mephibosheth was invited to dine at King David's table. It's the same dynamic with Ruth the outsider being invited to Boaz's table. In this framework, Ruth represents us, the modern believer, while Boaz represents Jesus, the ultimate redeemer who provides this completely unmerited favor.
If we connect this overflowing provision to the Gospel of John in the New Testament, we see that true grace is never just about bare minimum survival. It's abundant, it's repetitive, it is, literally, grace in place of grace already given, or grace upon grace. It's a well that just doesn't run dry, no matter how many times you go back to it.
Moving right along to section 2, effort in grace.
Here's where it gets super interesting. Receiving all of this unbelievable grace didn't make Ruth clock out early. After being fed, protected, and basically handed free grain, she didn't just pack up and go take a nap at noon. Nope. She labored in those fields until twilight, and then she did the backbreaking work of threshing the barley she'd gathered.
There's this massive misunderstanding of grace today. People often think, hey, if my provision is guaranteed, I don't really need to do anything, right? But the biblical reality is the exact opposite. True grace doesn't cancel out human effort, it actually fuels extraordinary effort. It produces results that totally exceed normal expectations.
And get this, her effort and grace produced a massive harvest. When she finished threshing, she had 10 kilograms of barley. To put that into perspective, for a single person picking up literal leftovers by hand in one day, that is a staggering amount of food. She never in a million years could have imagined a yield like that when she woke up that morning.
The Apostle Paul actually hits the nail on the head with this exact same principle later on. He writes that it was the grace of God that made him who he was. But what was his response to that grace? He said, "I worked harder than all of them." People who experience real, authentic grace don't get lazy. They become exceptionally diligent, completely energized by the favor they've been shown.
And that brings us to section 3, faithfulness in grace.
So after experiencing this incredible blessing and working her absolute hardest all day, what does Ruth do? She goes straight back to town to her mother-in-law Naomi, bringing that massive haul of grain and even the leftovers from her lunch with Boaz. She didn't let the sudden success go to her head, and she certainly didn't abandon the people relying on her.
These actions perfectly demonstrate her unwavering internal commitment. Remember that huge promise Ruth made to Naomi back when they were leaving Moab? She famously declared, "Your people will be my people, and your God, my God." Well, bringing that harvest home was the practical, everyday execution of that grand promise. She was walking the walk.
Now think about this. There's a really powerful theological reality here found in the Psalms. While Ruth was just bent down, sweating in a dirt field, picking up grain piece by piece, completely oblivious to the fact that she was stepping right into redemptive history, and would one day be the great-grandmother of King David, God saw her. God's eyes examined the earth, and he saw her quiet, diligent faithfulness.
This is such a stark contrast to how we operate today.
Our modern culture is entirely obsessed with chasing opportunities. We all want the big break, the larger platform, the viral moment. But the text suggests God operates completely differently. God is actively searching the earth, not for opportunists, but for faithful people.
Let's break down the 4 aspects of faithfulness.
Her commitment mounted in significance, almost like a staircase. It started with basic interpersonal relationships, moved up to the immediate task at hand, focused entirely on the present day, and ultimately culminated in her relationship with God.
Let's unpack that really quickly. First, she was faithful in her relationships, sticking by Naomi through intense hardship and grief. Second, she valued the task at hand. She didn't think picking up scrap grain was beneath her. Third, she was faithful to today, focusing on doing the hard work right in front of her rather than paralyzing herself with tomorrow's uncertainties. And finally, she was faithful to God, submitting to His ultimate plan even when she couldn't see the full picture. You see, Ruth's greatness wasn't just about her amazing destiny. It was her daily dedication across these 4 very fundamental, often mundane areas of life.
It all comes together so beautifully. This progression reveals exactly how it works. Grace enters our circumstances and provides the foundation. It fuels our hard work to bring a harvest. And quiet faithfulness ultimately calls us upward into a much greater divine plan.
So, here is the big question I want to leave you with today to evaluate your own priorities. Are you spending all of your energy just looking for the next big opportunity? Or are you willing to simply be a faithful person, trusting that grace will meet you exactly where you are? It's a pretty profound thought to chew on. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.